Welcome back to the deep dive.
Oh,
So you've brought us a fascinating stack of sources this week, and it's all focused on something many people in the field might view as strictly bureaucratic.
yeah, site safety management and incident reporting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we're here because we know that these forms, these checklists, they're anything but tedious. They are really the backbone, the living manual of a truly resilient operational system.
That's it exactly. Our mission today is to elevate this whole discussion beyond just compliance. We're going to be drilling down into the system you shared, pulling out the exact knowledge needed to manage risk, not just, record it.
Okay.
We need to understand the critical definitions, the practical inspection methods, and I think this is the most important part, the clear lines of authority and escalation that you need when things go wrong in these high-stakes environments.
I want to start right there, where the whole documentation process begins, with a distinction that I think often gets blurred, but is just absolutely crucial for proper risk management. We need to clearly define the difference between an incident and a near miss, because that single choice dictates the entire intensity of the investigation that follows.
It's the foundational difference, really. And organizations that fail to give equal weight to the near miss, they're making a massive strategic error. It's often the single biggest weakness in a safety culture.
So if we look at the source material, what is that hard, measurable line, the one that separates an event that results in just basic reporting from one that demands an immediate, intense investigation?
It really boils down to outcome and damage. An incident, by definition, is any unplanned event that results in injury, illness, damage, or, financial loss. There's a tangible negative consequence.
Let's use a concrete scenario. I know your sources rely on one to make this really clear.
Right. The clearest illustration they give is simple. A worker slips on a patch of leaking oil and fractures a leg.
Ouch.
The consequence is immediate, it's visible, and it is costly. That event becomes an incident because there was a definitive injury.
And if we just change the outcome slightly, what does the corresponding near miss look like?
A near miss is the same event, same hazard, but just a different luck factor. It's an unplanned event that did not result in injury or damage, but, and this is the key, had the clear potential to.
So in our oil spill scenario,
In our scenario, the worker slips on the oil patch but maybe catches themselves on a railing, and they regain their balance without falling. No injury occurred, no damage to any equipment.
now here's the interesting strategic insight. Why should a project manager or an EHS team spend resources investigating that near miss? If
Yeah.
nothing was broken, isn't that just safety bureaucracy, as some critics might call it?
And that's where the high-level insight comes in. The near miss is a free lesson. It's a risk signal with zero consequence, and it gives you a chance to fix the systemic fault, the oil leak, the poor housekeeping, before the serious incident occurs.
A free lesson. I like that.
Statistically, for every major injury, there are hundreds of near misses that go unreported. If you can capture even a fraction of those, you drastically reduce your exposure to liability and, major incident costs.
So you're not just reporting a close call, you're actually identifying a latent system failure.
Precisely. The goal isn't just compliance, it's preventative intelligence. If you only report the broken leg, you've missed every opportunity to prevent the next 5 broken legs caused by that same oil leak.
That makes the distinction feel strategically vital. Okay, so we've established the reactive side of safety, what to do when an event happens. Let's pivot now to the proactive measures.
Right.
How do sites ensure safety before an event like an oil spill even creates a hazard? How do they spot that unsecured electrical box before it becomes an unsafe condition?
This is where we shift from reaction to a rigorous routine. The primary method outlined in the sources is the structured site inspection, and that's typically done through regular walkthroughs.
These are formalized, scheduled checks.
Yes, daily or weekly, performed by supervisors or dedicated safety officers.
And these aren't just casual strolls, I'm guessing. They must be hyper-focused on specific, high-risk items. What are the must-check categories on these lists?
They have to be specific, otherwise the checklist loses its teeth. The inspectors are looking for confirmation that essential barriers are in place. This includes confirming proper PPE usage.
And that means more than just having it on site.
Oh, absolutely. We are talking about ensuring personal protective equipment is not just present, but it's correctly fitted and it's being worn. They also check the location and functionality of fire suppression equipment, making sure emergency exits are completely clear, confirming electrical safety standards are met, and inspecting the structural integrity of temporary structures like scaffolding.
Scaffolding integrity is a huge liability area. When we talk about technical depth, What is an inspector looking for beyond just, is it standing up?
They're looking for specific regulatory compliance points. Things like adequate bracing, correct base plating, and crucially, ensuring that appropriate tie-off points are available and actually being utilized. The documents really emphasize that a general observation is useless if you don't know the underlying standard.
Whether that's an industry best practice or a regulatory minimum.
Right. For load bearing, for fall protection, you have to know the standard.
That brings us to another valuable distinction the sources highlight: the difference between the two main types of hazards inspectors are trained to spot.
Yes, this is key. It's the difference between a person's error and an environment's error. Unsafe acts versus unsafe conditions.
Okay, break that down for us.
An unsafe act is behavioral. It's a worker using a piece of equipment improperly or deciding not to wear their required helmet in a designated zone.
That feels like a direct training or, I guess, an enforcement issue.
It is. Conversely, an unsafe condition is an environmental hazard. That could be frayed, exposed wiring, inadequate lighting in a dark corridor, or, the oil spill we discussed earlier. One is procedural, the other is physical.
And one often leads to the other, right?
That's what's so interesting. They interact. An unsafe act might create an unsafe condition later on.
How difficult is it for safety teams to distinguish between the two? Because often that line feels a little bit blurred.
It's a constant challenge. For instance, if scaffolding is missing a guardrail, that's an unsafe condition, but a worker decides to climb it anyway, which is an unsafe act, then you have two failures interacting.
Right.
The mature safety system understands that addressing the condition is a permanent fix, while addressing the act requires continuous training and, culture reinforcement.
So spotting the hazard is only half the battle. We also have the non-negotiable requirement for follow-up and correction.
Absolutely. An inspection is just data collection until you mandate corrective action. Every single hazard must be documented, ideally with notes and photographic evidence. And the critical point is tracking.
Tracking.
Immediate correction of the hazard, if possible, has to occur, and it has to be followed by a formal tracking system that verifies and closes out that corrective action. If the oil spill is mopped up, the job isn't done until the system verifies the source of the leak was repaired and documented as closed.
That level of rigor moves the whole system into the proactive sphere. Okay, we've covered prevention. Now let's explore the reactive response. Once a hazard is spotted or an event happens, what is the structured process for identification and reporting? How does that information get into the system?
Well, information enters the system through three main methods. First, there's simple, direct observation and scheduled inspections. Second, when incidents do happen, you conduct rigorous interviews with witnesses and affected personnel.
And the third?
A high-performing site also encourages a culture of immediate worker reporting for unsafe conditions, often through anonymous mechanisms.
That second point, worker reporting, that's a major cultural factor, isn't it? If workers fear repercussions for reporting an unsafe act, the entire system just breaks down.
It's the #1 psychological barrier. You can have the best forms and software in the world, but if the culture punishes bad news, the reports just dry up. A mature system has to guarantee non-retaliation and focus on the system failure, not the individual fault, especially for near misses.
So once that information is collected, someone needs to start the formal paper trail. What are the immediate required steps?
The first non-negotiable step is immediate notification. It has to go to the site in charge or the supervisor. Time is critical, especially if you need outside help.
Yeah, the paperwork.
Then you move to the formal documentation. This means creating a written report using standard forms. This document absolutely must capture the necessary data points: date, time, precise location, a factual description of the event, and the initial determination of the cause.
And that form isn't optional, even if they're using high-tech systems.
No. Even if the final submission is digital, the initial data collection has to be systematic. Most sites now use digital systems or safety management software to log reports immediately. And this is key because it allows for real-time aggregation and, critically, trend analysis.
Spotting patterns.
Exactly. Reviewing recurring reports to spot patterns. Maybe that isolated oil leak actually happens every time a specific piece of machinery runs for more than 4 hours.
That pattern recognition shifts the conversation from blaming a leak to fixing a maintenance schedule. Let's clarify the reporting authority. The workers spot it, the supervisor is notified, but who is authorized to officially push that report up the organizational structure?
The chain of authorization must be rigid. While workers are the eyes and ears on the ground, the formal reporting submission is controlled by management roles. The site in charge or supervisor is the official first line of reporting. They initiate the primary document.
And after that?
The safety officer or EHS team then validates and handles the formal documentation, making sure it's complete from a regulatory standpoint. Finally, the project manager is the signature authority, ensuring those validated reports reach senior management and, depending on the severity, external authorities.
That establishes a really clear accountability ladder. Let's focus intensely on that distinction between the site in charge and the project manager in the post-incident phase, because the sources separate their duties into tactical versus strategic domains.
And this separation is where a lot of organizations struggle. The site in charge has immediate tactical duties. They are the first responder to the paperwork, really.
What are their specific responsibilities?
Collecting all initial incident details, who, what, where, and ensuring the immediate short-term corrective action. This is the quick fix, like cordoning off the area or shutting down the faulty machine. They prepare the preliminary report, focused just on fact collection.
So the site in charge is focused on stabilizing the situation and gathering the primary data before that evidence trail goes cold.
Precisely. They're focused on the immediate aftermath and preventing recurrence in that one localized area.
The project manager then has to take that preliminary report and broaden the scope. What defines their strategic responsibility?
Their duties are much wider. They're concerned with systemic failure and future prevention across the entire project, or even the whole organization. The project manager has to first review and validate the in-charge's report for accuracy and completeness.
And then they send it up the chain.
They ensure the timely submission to senior management and, importantly, to regulators when it's required. But their critical role is implementing the long-term corrective measures. These are things that require budget allocation, procedural changes, maybe even new capital investment.
So if our oil spill scenario reached the project manager, they aren't just mopping the oil. They're changing the procurement process for that machine or instituting a new preventative maintenance schedule company-wide.
Exactly. They take the lesson learned and they communicate it globally to the rest of the team. This communication loop closes the continuous improvement cycle. The site in charge fixes the immediate mess. The project manager fixes the system that created the mess.
That tension is vital. The tactical urgency of the site in charge has to feed into the strategic planning of the project manager. Now let's introduce the key principle governing the entire reporting system, the escalation rule.
Right.
We've been talking about the internal chain, but when does an incident stop being just a site issue and become a mandatory a statutory issue?
This is the moment when safety failures become a legal liability the company has to declare to the government. And the distinction is absolutely vital. Minor incidents and near misses remain internal. They're handled at the site or corporate level, and they're designed for internal learning.
But the trigger for external regulatory reporting, what is it?
That is reserved for serious incidents. The sources define these explicitly, and they often mirror regulatory definitions. Any event resulting in a fatality, a major injury requiring hospitalization, a significant uncontrollable fire, or a structural collapse. These are the catastrophic failures.
Once that trigger is pulled, say a structural collapse, what is the mandated sequence? It has to be rapid, I'd imagine, as regulators will want immediate notification.
The speed of escalation determines the legal response. The site in charge must send an immediate preliminary notification, a quick text or an email alert to upper management and the EHS head. This is followed immediately by the safety officer or EHS head preparing a highly detailed, full investigation report, which often involves forensic analysis.
And the regulatory submission itself?
The project manager takes final ownership of that. They sign off on the complete, validated document. This report is then submitted to senior management, to the client, and crucially, to specific statutory authorities. The project manager's signature carries the legal weight here.
And the sources are helpful in listing exactly who those external bodies are, so there's no ambiguity when a serious incident occurs. Who are we talking about specifically?
We are talking about state or federal regulatory bodies that govern labor and safety standards. Things like the factory inspector, the labor department, or the local equivalent of an occupational safety and health administration. This is the moment the company is accountable not just to its shareholders, but to the state.
So we've taken a full tour of the safety framework. We started with the crucial definition of the near miss, that free lesson trace, the proactive inspection process that tries to spot that oil spill early established the roles of the tactical site in charge and the strategic project manager, and then we mapped the lightning-fast escalation protocol required for a catastrophe.
We've mapped the flow of safety intelligence. The ultimate goal here, which your documents underscore repeatedly, is that documentation is not an end in itself. It is the mechanism that turns raw event data into actionable knowledge. These protocols exist to feed continuous improvement, training updates, and long-term risk mitigation. If the system stops learning from the forms, it fails, regardless of any compliance checks.
I think that's the perfect synthesis. Given the complexity we've detailed, the site in charge starts the report, the safety officer meticulously details it, the project manager reviews, signs, and submits it to external authorities. The most critical operational tool for any organization is often the visual simplicity of a step-by-step reporting flowchart.
You need to be able to see the entire chain of command and notification in one clear image.
Exactly. So we challenge you with this thought to mull over. If a serious incident happened right now, how quickly could every single person on your team visually trace that escalation path from the initial site notification right up to the final submission to the statutory authorities? If the answer is not without hesitation, you know the priority for your next training session.
Until next time, stay informed and stay safe.
That's all for this deep dive.